Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. Probably going, man, I haven't seen you guys in a week. Well, that is purely my fault. I was sick for a majority of last week and basically just cut off because it would not have been good for me to do this. Not to the I was not sick to the extent of, hey, I couldn't do things, but I certainly couldn't do one of the main portions of my job, which was speak for an elongated piece of time. And people wanted to have heard that. And I'm not sure you even want to hear the state that I'm in right now, but I'm at least good enough to do this. And that's good timing because this is easily the biggest transfer portal day to this point for K-State basketball, because today the Wildcats have landed their first commitment out of the transfer portal. They also lost one of the most important guys that you thought could come back for next season's team. And now we kind of see where some of that might be. So, Drew, let's just start with the exciting news. If you want to call it that, K-State has landed their first addition this year in the portal. It is in the form of Abdi Bashir, who played at Monmouth the last 2 seasons, averaged over 20 points a game, and can shoot the ball, is going to take a lot of shots. He was the 15th leading scorer in college basketball last season if you go by points per game average. I know up until you wrote it in your story that until Chattanooga's run to win the did they win the NIT or come up?
Yeah,
Won it. They won it. They had a player that overtook Bashir for the most made threes in the country. So a lot of people are probably going, hey, this sounds like Mason's kind of guy. It is, but we're going to get into the semantics of all of this. But off the face, what does it mean for K-State getting Abdi Bashir?
Just off the face, I think that this is a fun piece to add. The hesitation that I have, I mean, you can see it on the video. I weigh more than Bashir does, so that's where I get a little hesitant. At 160 pounds, at 6'7", that's not great. So you're going to need to get him really acclimated and get him ready for Big 12 play, because that's just a skinny dude. But the other things that I like that he can score the ball. K-State didn't have a guy that could really kind of go and get their own bucket last year. Like we thought that you might be able to get that with Doug McDaniel. We thought you might be able to get that with Coleman Hawkins. Bashir can really do it, and he's also good in a catch and shoot scenario as well. So he's a little bit more versatile in that standpoint. The thing that also I would say is probably a good thing for Bashir to shoot 38% from 3 last year on the volume that he had, because not only was he number 2, which technically he was kind of number 1 because Monmouth just didn't play another game. And 3-pointers made, for him to be number 1, but really number 2 is good. And then you add the volume for him to shoot 320 some odd threes last year and still shoot 38%. It is a good sign, and something that you'd think that you kind of take that volume down, because if my math is correct, that is almost 10 threes a game that Bashir was taking, and to shoot 38% is impressive. And you hope that if he's taking like 7 or 8 a game, kind of like in that Brendan Hausen range, that he is flirting more towards 40% and above. So on the face of it, I think that it's a fun ad and a fun first piece, because I mean, we've all been just kind of craving for anything remotely positive to happen in recent days. So to add Bashir, I think at face value, it is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's going to give you a player that can certainly boom in a really exciting way. And this team needed somebody that could be an offensive driver next season. Because, look, even if Brendan Hausen were to come back, he would have been a guy that his role needed to be reduced slightly in an ideal world. K-State put him in a position where he had to do too much. He had to play too much. So it wasn't going to come from him. Doug McDaniel didn't do enough last year to think that on a consistent basis, he is going to be that guy. You needed somebody that could be your offensive number one. Abdi Bashir can come in and be your offensive number one. Now, the question is, how does it translate from the CAA to the Big 12 on a nightly basis? But like you were quick to dive into it, Monmouth played a number of games against high major competition last year, and he held his own pretty well. Now, again, you do kind of try to consider like Monmouth was not a good team in the CAA.
They weren't even an okay team in the CAA.
Yeah,
Like, Monmouth
so
was
like
terrible.
the playing with the purpose like that, he could at least get his, like that's going to be the thing to see. And we've seen Jerome Tang has always been caught up on like, this guy's a winner. This guy's won here. He's won here. Well, Abdi Bashir has not won there. So like, how is that going to translate? But he did perform fairly well against teams, like Auburn, who was just in the Final Four, or numerous other teams in the Big Ten or wherever else throughout the country. So what do you have on what Bashir did against some of the better competition last season?
Yeah, he was a little bit of feast or famine, to be honest with you. He still scored 15 against Auburn, but you don't love that he was 4-15 from the floor. It's never a good sign when you have a shooter that is taking the same amount of shots that he has points. But then their second game against high major competition, he went 11 of 19 from the floor, including 6 of 9 from three against Seton Hall in a game that they won, which says more about Seton Hall, I think, than it did Monmouth, that Seton Hall lost that game. And then another disaster team in the power conference level against Rutgers. Bashir was 11 of 23 from the field and hit 10 threes on 17 attempts. So he is capable of doing this at the high major level, and we've seen it. 7 of 22 against Michigan State. Michigan State and Auburn are both two teams that are really good defensively. And Bashir was quite literally the one player for Monmouth that could really score the ball. So it makes a little bit more sense to me that he wasn't as good in those two games. K-StateOnline fan pointed out to me when we were talking about Bashir earlier today. Bashir had the third highest shot rate in college basketball last year. Like, their offense was give him the ball and let him go because he was their offensive threat. So I'm intrigued to see kind of what he is like with other power conference players and like how it really translates. A lot of good programs were after him. Alabama was going after him. KU was going after him. So there is something that is there that can really be unlocked. And you would imagine that with better players, obviously he's going to take less shots, but you kind of hope that he can really take a step as like a playmaker, because right now, all he really does at a really high clip is score the basketball, which again, not a bad thing. You and I are both on record of like good offense is so much more fun than defense, but Bashir was also like a very, very, very rough defender if you really dive into that. So you want him
to, which makes sense. You would, the profile there would suggest he's 6'7", 160. So like, who can he really guard? And then he doesn't have the size to maybe guard who he needs to guard. That type of deal.
And that's where I think that if you get him in the strength and conditioning program, like that's where he needs to take that step to be at a weight that is okay for him to play at least a little bit of defense. But I think that him coming in, again, it is a good thing because they needed somebody that could score the ball at a good clip. And like, watch these highlights. He is a fun player. He will probably drive a lot of people crazy, though, because there will definitely be a game where he takes a lot of shots. The Drexel game this year, if you haven't looked at that game log, that's the most electric game log I've ever seen from a college player. 33 shot attempts, 23s, and went 8 of 20 from deep.
Nothing wrong with going 8 of 20. That's a pretty good mark. This is what this comes down to is what else is going to come along with Abdi Bashir, and that will determine it. Here's what it will do, at least for you, is any given night you could watch a pretty fun performance from him. So if nothing else comes together for this team, you at least are going to have, oh, we'll see what he does tonight. But there are like, and this isn't necessarily his fault, but like Bashir's coming in and it's going to be okay, great. Like, I want to be excited. Like, it helps to know that there are a lot of other programs out there that are doing a lot better than K-State right now that wanted him. So K-State gets a player like that. Like, that's encouraging, but we just don't know who else is going to be around him. You know, right now, basically the only guy that's left that we expect to be a contributor next year is Doug McDaniel. And, you know, you're talking about, oh, well, Bashir struggles on the defensive end. Well, you know, it's not like Doug's always like a lockdown defender there. And so how are those guys going to work together as, you know, as guys on the floor? The rest of this roster has to be built out to where this makes sense. It's a better start than a lot of other situations for K-State in terms of now that they've actually gotten a guy. Like,
they could have gotten much worse to start.
Yeah. Like they could have, you know, I can pull up the list right now and look at guys that they've been chasing, but like, let me just pick out. Like if Chase Forte, for example, was the first guy to commit in this class, we're sitting here going, they've done nothing. Guys aren't leaving. The South Dakota dude's like, you know, the 700th ranked guy in the portal. I don't know where he is in our on 3 rankings now. Guy, we can't even keep up with it. But it's like, that's not this one. At least you have excitement in the play and you can see how it could make some sense. And now you just got to hope that you're going to be able to make it translate to the Big 12 and that kind of competition. But I'll ask you this and then let you go into what else you have on him. What level of player, like if you were ranking, you know, if he's your number 1 player next year, your number 2, number 3, where would Bashir have to be for K-State to be an NCAA tournament team? And again, we don't know who else is going to be in the mix, but like if Abdi Bashir has to be your best player next year, is K-State an NCAA tournament team?
I think he probably needs to be your second best player because I just right now hesitate to even really think about what level he would need to be at defensively to be considered K-State's best player. Because he was just that bad on the defensive end of the floor last year. So I think he probably still needs to be your second or third best player, probably, to be at least where you want to be in the NCAA tournament. Like, I think that if he's your best player and you fill around him with guys that can score and be a playmaker and be a lot better defensively than he is, I think that you could maybe be a bubble team. But I think that you probably want him to be your second or third best player, because at worst, I think that Bashir is Brendan Hausen. At best, I don't really have like a great comp, but it would just be a guy that can really just go out and get you 15 to 20 a game every night. I mean, you were talking about guys that he would be like, you'd be more excited about Bashir than. Like, I would even add a guy like Jaleel Bethea. That ended up committing to Alabama, the Miami transfer. Like, I think I'd be more excited about Bashir than Bethea. Like
the upside with Bashir is really good. Like
yes.
you don't know, you can't guarantee that it's going to be there. Like this is a very volatile player, but
he has all conference upside, but has a floor that is crazy low.
Yeah, which is, you know, kind of what a lot of these transfers are turning into under Jerome Tang right now. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes there.
And you could even argue that a lot of transfers in general kind of have that really low floor, but I think that Bashir has an extremely high ceiling.
Yeah, no, the ceiling, like there is a world where he is K-State's best player next year, and they are an NCAA tournament team. But like I would not want to sign up for that today and say that you want that guy to be your best player or most impactful next year. We'll see. It's just it's a decent start for K-State in terms of how the start looks, not when they're starting. Because I think a lot of people would agree it's been a pretty poor start to the offseason for them. Not as many guys in the portal yet as you would expect or think need to be there. And then, you know, they haven't necessarily been adding guys at the highest rate. Real quick, time to remind everybody that if you are still thinking, hey, August 23rd, I want to be in Ireland, not on my couch, watching the Cats kick off the college football season, very first game, week 0, you got to go to cats2ireland.com. They got great packages, whether it's, hey, I want to be, given the greatest hospitality I can get in Ireland. Boom, got it. You may also just be like, I'm terrible at leading my family on trips. We go on vacation, like, Dad, you suck at this. Like, we're not looking at anything fun. Hey, let Cats to Ireland take care of you. They can take you through all these different cities, give you all these different experiences. And the most important thing, they can get you hooked up with your airfare and your tickets to the game. So go to cats2ireland.com, your one-stop shop. They'll get you set up for everything you need to go over there and be in the mix for the Cats and the Clones. Drew, this is one of those days where I was dumb and forgot to do this organically in the show. So we're going to need you to unload a couple of facts here on Ireland to make up for the fact that people may listen to this a couple of different times throughout the year.
Oh, I got a great one today, actually. It's a movie that I know that you like, so good start. Saving Private Ryan was filmed in Ireland.
Why do you say you knew that I liked that movie?
Well, that was just an assumption on my part because I know that you like history.
I've never seen Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, that
So,
that felt like a win because I know how much that you like history and like learning.
well, let's see who's in Saving Private Ryan here. I'm looking. Okay, Tom Hanks. I can get behind that a little bit. Matt Damon. I haven't seen a ton of like Matt Damon things. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It says it came out the year I was born. That's long. That's a long run time.
It is a long movie. I will give you that.
And you're right. I do like history. I don't know. Like, I'm not a big like war movie guy though. Like those don't do it for me. Like the history that I'm interested in is less about like some people are really into like World War II or like the Civil War or like whatever. Wars don't do it for me. I'm not a pacifist, but wars don't do it for me.
I can give you that Braveheart was also filmed in Ireland.
Also never seen it.
Wow, that's a nice 0 for 2 on movies, and you're the one that always tells me that I need to be watching movies.
Well, I watch a lot of stupid movies and TV shows that aren't like I know what I'm watching. Like this is not actually good. It's hokey. Name some other things that have been filmed in Ireland for movies or TV, and I'll tell you if I've seen them or not. Like things that you recognize and you go, "Oh, that's legit. I've heard of that before."
Well, right now we're 0 of 2 because those are 2 movies that I've definitely heard of. Leap Year filmed in Ireland. I've heard of that one.
Nope, never heard of it. Never seen it.
That's one of the most recent ones that I've seen on here. The Journey, another one that I've heard of. Oh, P.S. I Love You. I've definitely heard of that one.
Yeah, none of those. I've not. The first 2 I at least have heard of. I don't even know that I've heard of them.
The fact that you haven't heard of P.S. I Love You is that's kind of that's a killer because I've even heard of that one. Let's see. We got a lot of war movies actually have been filmed in Ireland. I'm not really sure why. 71 is another one. So apparently, if you want to film a war movie, film it in Ireland. People like it, apparently.
All right. Well, Cats are going to go to war in Ireland with Iowa State. Nice. Cats2ireland.com. Go over there. And now we'll just send you back to what Drew and I were actually talking about on whatever day it was. And we also know that there were only 2 guys that really profiled as dudes that you want to keep. You want to make sure they stay in the fold next year, or you'd be open to it. Doug McDaniel, Brendan Hausen. And again, people are torn on that. Like there's a faction of people that don't want Doug McDaniel back. There were a faction that didn't want Brendan Hausen back. The good news is if you don't like Brendan Hausen, you don't have to worry about it anymore because he is in the transfer portal. Started all 33 games for K-State last year after transferring from Villanova, where he played his first 2 seasons for Kyle Neptune. Shot it close to 39% from 3, struggled down the stretch, but K-State put a lot more on his plate last year than maybe a player of his caliber really needed. We also know that the way K-State's defense works out or offense works out, wasn't kind to the type of player that Brendan Hausen was. He's decided to go look elsewhere, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think one way or the other, you have to realize that the Bashir and Hausen thing are connected. So it's, did Hausen get wind of the Bashir commitment, or is it the other way around where K-State said, "Oh man, we gotta step it up since Hausen's not coming back. We need that offensive player." And I would say that this is going back to the Bashir commitment. He is the type of player that probably would have benefited K-State more last year, because if you flip him out with Brendan Hausen, he can do a little bit more for himself. They're like, the volume, obviously, it's an even larger volume than how Brendan Hausen handled himself last year. Like, he is a player that could be in that position a little bit more to have it on his shoulders. Like, there's a little bit more of a freelance ability there to his game, where, we know with Hausen, like, he kind of needed to be set up. But this is not like a great loss or anything for K-State. Like, this is disappointing to see that they weren't able to keep one of the very few players that they really wanted to bring back next season.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I struggle with this, because DY said it. I'm about to say it. You kind of just said it. On the surface, losing Brendan Hausen, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing or irreplaceable. It's more of just the talk of wanting to retain as many guys as you could that like made sense for K-State to bring back next year, and then not being able to do it with one of the two guys that it really made the most sense to do. It is, I think, the part that is the most disappointing about this whole situation, especially because it seemed when the transfer portal opened up, there was rumors about Brendan Hausen maybe entering the portal. Those died off in the first day or two, and then within the last week again, you really heard the Hausen potentially jumping in the portal, and now today he ends up doing it right before Bashir commits. So again, there's no real coincidences in how these things probably ended up going. But again, like I said, like it's mostly disappointment because that's just somebody that you wanted to keep. You've had a pretty dark off season already, because it seems from the outset that K-State was willing to run the staff back again after a really disappointing season. Then Yorik Malagi leaves, and you still have an assistant position coach or an assistant coach position open, and you still don't have that filled yet. You'd lost another player. You still have guys on the roster that like 98% of the population knows is going to leave. And it's just a whole optic situation, because it just doesn't look like there has been much of a plan going on. And I think that's the most disappointing part of this whole situation, is that everybody would have been more on board if there was a little bit more of like structure and planning and visits. Like Abdi Bashir commits to K-State without taking a visit even. So like that whole thing is just a little bit strange in how it's gone, because you would have expected K-State from the time that they played their last game in Kansas City to now would have had a little bit more staff turnover, had the staff positions filled, had all the players that they thought were going to leave, would have had guys come in on visits, because the only one that's taken a visit so far has been Markel Sutton, and he ended up going to LSU, and would have probably added. I wouldn't have even been mad if they would have gone into today and gone through today even without a commitment, if it looked like there was more tangible targets and progress, where this Bashir commitment kind of comes out of nowhere. So it makes you think that there are a little bit more things going on behind the scenes. But from the outset, it just kind of looks like there hasn't really been a lot of planning and substance.
Yeah, this has been a topic on the boards recently, and you were discussing it at length today with some people, and it's like, it doesn't matter how it looks to get there. If this team makes the NCAA tournament next year, then
it's a good season.
It's a good season. Like, it doesn't matter but this team, the current situation, this team does not get any credit or like any benefit of the doubt until we just actually see him play games again. Until then, everybody has to be optimistic, like has to be pessimistic. Your BS meter needs to be up on this team right now. There's no reason to buy in. Now, it would have been a little bit easier to do that if you did feel like there was a clear cut plan. But like you're saying, we haven't really seen that unfold yet. That also leads to the only other player that's in the portal in Buddy Rich. So take it away, Drew, because I know this was one of your favorite players.
Yeah, this was the least surprising transfer entry, I think, of all time. Like, really, from the time that he didn't see the floor again to when he ended up leaving, I think it was pretty obvious to everybody that he was leaving. I would be stunned if a high major program gave him an outlet and let him go and play there. Like, I'm not even to the level where I think that like a pretty solid mid-major program will take him. Like, I think that this will probably be a team that is really desperate and kind of looking, because if you have kind of heard and seen what's been going on with Buddy Rich behind the scenes, I think that a lot of programs will probably stay away. I know that for a lot of schools, and especially the smaller schools, when they're doing their due diligence on a player that's coming from a high major program, they'll probably reach out to the coaching staff. And I don't think that this coaching staff at K-State will probably say a lot of glowing things about Buddy Rich. So you kind of see that. You see that he had gone for a really long time without playing and had gone 3 halves of basketball before Jerome Tang had to bench him again because he wasn't playing very hard. And you start to think, okay, what low major school is going to take him? So I think that that's kind of where that is. But there's still guys out there that I'm like, there is probably no way that you're coming back next year, but you haven't left yet. And I'm just confused by that.
Yeah. I know that some people were floating like, hey, is it they're waiting on final payments? I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't know what the plan is. More guys are going to leave. I think if you're looking at the roster as it currently stands right now, and we're tracking it over on KSO, you can follow along with it. But for next year's team and how it sets up, I can probably only guarantee. Well, I will not make any guarantees. But I think that there are still at least two that are going to exit. I would imagine maybe, it ends up being more than that. But yeah, Buddy Rich goes. It makes sense. He wasn't playing. There was, disconnect there. And really at this point, a guy like that has been in the program 2 years. The on-court stuff, there hadn't been enough that had been seen to make me think that, you need a junior or senior out there for an extended period like Buddy Rich. He didn't provide that much to you. How he performed in the Wichita State game, a lot of that was kind of an anomaly.
It also inflates his stats.
Yeah.
Looking.
Like we know he's not a good shooter. His defense, like even though he had the size, I think people always thought because of his size and athleticism, like he would be a good defender. He wasn't because Jerome Tang basically would call him lazy after games. Just no reason to keep going on this train for K-State. Now, to continue the talk about, well, why has this offseason seemed like not the best start? Why has it been concerning? It's because K-State, yes, doesn't seem like there's a clear-cut plan, or at the very least, a lot of people are not aware of what the plan actually is, and whether that's just the regular fan out there or, it's people that, not even you and me, but like other people that are even deeper into this and have some more of the inside info, like DY or whoever else you want to source in this. Like, I think they're in the dark in a lot of ways, but we do know that K-State has been connected to a handful of guys. And, there were already 9 guys that K-State kind of missed on early that there was some kind of connection. And again, these are all varying levels of player, but like, all right, I think that's a player that, hey, maybe you would have liked to have had. And again, we don't know how in deep K-State was with all these guys, but we know there was interest there one way or the other. All right to Xavier, Marion Dickerson to USC, Jonathan Powell to North Carolina, Markel Sutton, who you had on a visit. They did really want him. He ends up at LSU. Jalil Bethea goes to Alabama. Tyrone Riley, he's going back to San Francisco. Harlan Obioha, I'm stunned to see him end up at West Virginia. We talked about him last week or whenever it was. It was kind of like, yeah, maybe you can play 10 minutes a game at a high major program, but I thought he'd end up at a lower level somewhere. Keontae Jones is going to USC, and then Morez Johnson, which that was a wild one because it seemed like K-State was in this group of teams that they were maybe going to throw the most financial backing out there. Or at least that was kind of the insight. Who knows if that's legit? Because I want people to remember that K-State is going to be used in a lot of ways by players to up the price that's going to come their way in the transfer portal. So, there was interest there. Was it to the extent was, thrown out to me? I don't know, but Michigan stepped up and into that sucker real quick. He's probably the best player on this list. And then you look beyond that, Markel Sutton maybe would be next up on that. If you had one more of these guys, especially of the right type, you probably would look at, like, if Markel Sutton was playing and you added Bashir today, I think you're feeling a lot better. And that doesn't, that a lot doesn't mean that you're feeling great. Just means that you've got a pretty deep hole that you're in right now, and you can get a lot higher in that hole and closer to getting out of it. Doesn't mean that you're in a good spot. Like, you're still likely to die if you're in that position in the hole in a couple weeks, but you're at least not sitting on the bottom of it anymore. So that's why I like the perception thing, and like the staff can't come out and fight that. Like, you have to do some of this stuff in the shadows, but like, people can only go off of what they've seen. There's a long list of guys that were already committing and going other places, and K-State didn't have one yet. So it's big that they were able to get Bashir today and put themselves in a position where, okay, you now have a player added. Now you have to see some pieces that come in and can make this thing fit. Like, K-State's going to need some guys with some size for next year's team. That's probably the next piece to make you kind of start to believe, okay, this thing, we're seeing the plan. It's getting closer to being back on the tracks.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think that if they had gotten Sutton or the only other one that I would say was probably pretty tangible was Amarian Dickerson, because USC got him before K-State could get him in on a visit. I think K-State was planning on getting him in on a visit this week after the Final Four dead period is up. So if you landed one of those other two guys and had Bashir right now, it's easier to kind of squint and say, okay, those are two pretty solid pieces. You already have Doug McDaniel too. So you can kind of start to really build like a starting five that is a little bit more realistic, and you feel just better about it. And this is where I kind of struggle too, because like, I'm in believe it when I see it mode right now with how K-State has operated the last two seasons. But I'm not any different than anybody else. Like, when the season comes around and we're talking about these guys, like, it's not hard to just squint and say, okay, maybe this could work out, because it could. But like, you get those two guys, like it's pretty easy to squint and say, okay, there's three starters. Like, what could you do next? Now K-State's at two guys that are starting, and you're kind of in that same spot, because I think that you could easily argue that getting a big was probably going to be more important and impactful right now than adding somebody like Bashir. And that's as somebody that likes Bashir, but like, K-State has nothing right now in the front court. So adding somebody else would have kind of made you feel like, okay, like, now what? So I think that we're just kind of in a wait and see, which really sucks, because like, again, when you don't make the tournament, you have so much time to kind of attack and formulate a plan and everything. And it feels like they really missed a step. But again, like I've said on the board, like you've said today, if they come out of this and still make the tournament, you can't fault the process that got them there, because it would have worked. So it's hard for me to really kind of judge everything right now, because we don't have the complete picture. but it does feel just like something is missing. And I think that that's part of just having now one more spot open than we anticipated. It's only having one guy come in on a visit. It's being linked to a lot of these guys. Like another one that we may or may not talk about, but I was just going to bring up was a top 5 that got announced today, which is Austin Schwartz from Miami. And like him being in the top 5 with K-State doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because he just kind of feels like another Brendan Hausen, another Abdul Bashir or Abdi Bashir, where all he really does is shoot threes and doesn't really do a whole lot else. So I think that's kind of the thing too. When you just look at top 5s, like again, Nigel Pack is another one where you just kind of look and it's like he doesn't really make a lot of sense for what K-State has right now.
Yeah, we were going to talk about Nigel Pack specifically because I know people are excited about the thoughts of that and everything else. No, I just it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense in the position that they're in now. I think that again, K-State's being used in this in some way for whatever the gain. My best guess would be is that of those teams that are right there right now, Clemson and KU might make the most sense just based off of what I think their situations are.
Those two make
Indiana maybe, but like OU just I don't know about that.
I think
But
that
yeah,
those two probably make the most sense. I've kind of heard the most about Oklahoma, but I also think that if Indiana comes around and if Indiana like wants him, he's gonna go to Indiana. Like
yeah,
that was a team that like when Nigel Pack transferred the first time, I kind of thought was going to be the team that got involved. I know that a lot of people thought that Purdue was probably going to be a team when Pack transferred the first time, but for me, it was just always kind of like that Indiana feeling. But Indiana would probably make the most sense if they want him. But OU is kind of the team that has had the most chatter recently, which is kind of surprising.
yeah. We'll see how it plays out there, but I don't. The Nigel Pack reunion dream probably can be put to bed for a lot of K State fans, especially now that we've seen the additions and the situation that they have in front of them today. Other guys to at least know right now that were mentioned you throughout Austin Schwartz, K State's been linked to some new names to put on the radar that might be worth knowing. Jerry Dang from Florida State was in the mix, and there are a handful of other guys at K State at least has tried to put themselves in the position of. You can go find the full list of the known contacts over at KSO, but not a lot now that we know that K-State's hot on the trails of. Like, you're waiting on this thing to probably pick back up in a couple of days when that dead period ends, and we'll just see how it ends up playing out. But it's a start for K-State. Like you said, you used the, you can at least squint if they add another guy and it makes sense. Like, it's a big, okay, you got 3 of your 5 starters. I can see how this is starting to come together. You add another piece. Okay. Like, think about last year. We ended up being wrong. I ended up looking like a total idiot, but
Same.
like we were squinting and then like our eyes were getting even wider and wider. And it was like, oh, wow, this team, they're going to be good. Like that's what they were able to get us to believe last year. I mean, I genuinely thought that. Unfortunately, like it just didn't work out for a number of reasons. And the question now is this staff going to be able to make this team work with those reasons and just being able to build out a roster now? Like, they built a talented group of individuals last year, but they didn't build a basketball team that worked together. Well, now, not only are you trying to build a basketball team that works together, we're just looking for the individuals at this point. And that's really concerning because they don't even have the pieces for this thing to possibly fall together. Like, there's probably a good chance that I'm not going to be able to cook my family dinner tonight. Not because we don't have ingredients in the pantry, but because I suck at it. So, like, probably not going to happen. But I guess, I have the ingredients, so I got a better chance of doing it than, whoever's out on the street or whatever.
Yeah, I would say the most concerning thing about next year for me has been we saw how bad it was this year, and you had you could argue now your 3 best players from last year have all left for graduation reasons, and then Brendan Hausen transferring. It's like you kind of worry about where it goes. But I guess, just speaking for myself, it's just easy for me to kind of get more bought in. Like, I'm really hesitant to buy fully in because you and I were the ones really kind of driving the bus of what we thought of this K-State roster last off season. So it's going to take me a lot to get to like that level. But this is what's fun about the transfer portals, that we can talk about all these guys and like can kind of squint and dream a little bit about what could be next. And that's why, like, for a lot of these recruitments, like, you just want more information and more guys out there that like seem like tangible targets, and that don't have like a lot of overlap of what K-State already has.
Yeah. No, great point. All right. We'll get ready to get out of here. Hopefully we'll be back tomorrow. Maybe I'll be, like 1% better, ready to go, provide a little bit more for everybody. But before we get out here, Drew, national championship tonight, Florida, Houston. The Cougars just made the big comeback against Duke over the weekend. Is that who you're riding with tonight?
If you remember, way back when we did our first video, picked Florida to win it all over Houston.
Okay.
I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I need Houston to win because I got inside information that I'm not a full-time employee. Do some Power Cat game day stuff for them, but I am if Houston wins, I win the Manhattan broadcasting pool. So I need to show Mitch Fortner that I know something. I'd like to see Houston do it. I really have no idea of how this thing will play out tonight. I just feels like Kelvin Sampson's time. It feels like they survived kind of a little bit of a clunker and a poor start against Duke. Maybe they'll give you closer to a full 40 tonight, but it'll be exciting. It's good to get some good games here.
I will 100% be rooting for Houston. Kelvin Sampson with a shout out to the Big 12 and like disrespecting the ACC and dancing on Duke's grave a little bit after their win made me laugh a lot harder than it probably should have. But I don't know if Houston has the firepower, because I mean, Texas Tech had Florida dead to rights until Walter Clayton decided to become like Michael Jordan and LeBron put together.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, so we are going to get out of here. We'll be back again tomorrow, hopefully, again, as long as I'm better, fine, can get through it. Next time we do talk to you, though, there will be a combination, unless things get real crazy with basketball. It will not be a basketball-only show. We'll talk some football in it as well. So you have that to look forward to, whether it's tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever, sometime in the near future this week. Drew and I will be back to talk a little bit more with you guys and get through all that. But we'll get out of here for now. So for Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching and listening and putting up with me on the KSO show today.